this on here. So today I thought we might talk a little bit about Ladino, which is a combination of Spanish and Jewish, we'll call it. So it's usually it's Hebrew, but there's a little bit of Aramaic and things like that. This is a mini version, what I wrote on here. We were talking about how there were Jews, as you know, in Spain, and there was something called the Spanish expulsion and the Spanish Inquisition. 1492 was not just a time when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but it was also when Ferdinand and Isabella on Tisha B'Av decided to tell the Jews that they had to either convert to Catholicism or leave or be killed. And many were tortured, many non-Jews were tortured to try to give up their Jewish neighbors. And it had just come off of the end of what was a golden age in Spain. The Jews and the Christians and the Muslims all worked really well together. You may be familiar with music from that time. The flamenco music, flamenco, came from a blending of those cultures together, which is probably a good thing. Maybe next time, instead of languages, we'll talk about Jewish music from different places. That'd be really fun.
Yeah.
And so, but Ladino is a language that came from the Jews from Spain. The word Sephardic means Spanish, literally, because Sfarad means Spain. Historically, as you see on here, these are some really basic facts, that it came from, it was written with Hebrew script originally. Now it's more commonly written with Latin script, which means the same characters we use. It includes influences from Hebrew, Turkish, and Greek because of where the Jews were expelled to. And then there's this cool fact that says, if you want to wish travelers well, you say, caminos de leche y miel, which means may you follow the paths of milk and honey.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of cool? So, so I have that. So let me see. I have a few different sources for you. I will give you, there are a bunch of free classes that you can take if you want. And they're basics. And I've got, this one actually has a very cool dictionary that I was going to share with you also, but I thought I would use this. Here's a slightly more official history, kind of. This is from Jewish Studies at Washington University. It says Ladino, which is sometimes known as Judeo-Spanish or Judaismo, is the language of the Sephardic Jews, also called the Sfaradim, who originated from the Iberian Peninsula, which is now Spain and Portugal. After they were expelled from Spain in 1492, the Sephardim sought refuge across the Mediterranean and Middle East and beyond, primarily in the Ottoman Empire, where they developed the Ladino language. So they were speaking a form of Spanish before this. And just like we saw with the Roman Jews, there's still language parts where you're speaking. Actually, that was one of the videos I wanted to share with you, that to speak a Jewish language, sometimes you could be speaking English and throw a lot of Hebrew into your sentence, and you wonder if that's English or another Jewish language. I've got a good video I wanted to share with you. I don't think we should show it during this, but I thought you'd enjoy it. But anyway, it shows that they added all of these things. It was a language for all of these different elements, including Turkish and Greek and Italian, French and Arabic, because the people who were there that were influencing. It was a language for all occasions, in the home, in the street, the marketplace, the synagogue, humor and satire, politics and literature. There's still a lot of literature and music that's being used for Ladino. Some people see it as a kind of a resurgence, kind of like the research that I talked about last week. And especially, there was this ironic thing, especially during the pandemic, there was a resurgence of, let's see, where did I put it? There was a resurgence of Ladino learning thanks to the pandemic, because people were sitting around and not doing anything. All right, I'm going to pull this up. No, somewhere here. It's not there. It's memorize here. This one is a core vocabulary. Last week, I think we had the most fun looking at vocabulary. This is there's an app for this but this part of it is free. It's called memrise.com. And I thought you would enjoy this. How many people here know some Spanish? Some? None? A little bit? Oh, now if you know some Spanish, you're going to really love this because you're going to love seeing what's similar and what's different. And I am not going to promise you that my pronunciation in Ladino is perfect, but I think that you're going to find that it's similar to this. There's vocabulary here, but we're not going to have to do all of it because the phrases use both. So as you could see, just to show on here, let me see. If I've got, this is how this vocabulary list is going to work. It's showing you that it's that la means the, and it's a feminine word. But you would have figured that out. If you took French, you would have also, or other Romance languages, Spanish, you would have had the same kind of thing. So that el is the, but it's masculine, and la is the, but it's feminine. It's the same words in Spanish. La casa, and you see how different that is from the Spanish. The Spanish is la casa with an S instead. El hombre is the man, just like in Spanish. El libro, so in Spanish it would be with a B instead of a V. And then you're going to see some other things that are different. So the new book is El libro nuevo. So in Spanish, you would have seen nuevo with an N, but now we've got nuevo instead of nuevo. Why? I am not 100% sure why. There are some shifts that I can tell you about in English and in German. I was more familiar with those shifts. When we talk about Yiddish, I can tell you about some of those shifts better than I can about Ladino. One of the things I wanted to talk about for Ladino is that you may know people who use Ladino as their core language. But you also may know some people who have as their background Spanish language things. So because they may have come from Spanish, they may have left Spain because of the expulsion. And they may have had the, I think so, Amy, that the C to K was through Greek influence, I think so. So I started to say, so when I was in like 4th grade and in religious school, hold on one second, let me stop the share for 1 second. When I was in 4th grade in religious school, I learned about what they called at the time, we were taught to call them marranos. I don't know if any of you've heard that. Marranos were Jews who hid the fact that they were Jewish because they did not want to die and they could not or were in a position to or didn't want to leave Spain. So they pretended to have converted. And I was told then that the Jews called the ones who didn't convert marranos. And I thought that's what we were supposed to call them. But it turns out that the word marranos was a word that meant pig. And the Jews felt it was a very derogatory thing to say because the Jews, there were many Jews who didn't convert and many family members were killed or they had to leave. And the ones who did convert but kept a hidden observance of Judaism were not always looked on favorably by the other Jews. So a few things happened. When I was in 4th grade, we were taught how to, we had an assignment to try to hide ritual objects and use them in, like, for example, imagine you have a siddur, a prayer book, and you put a false cover on it. And so it may have had a cover that looked like it was a secular title or something like that, and you knew that it was your siddur. Or let's say you had a special Kiddush cup and you hid it by turning it into a vase, let's say. I have since seen, and I would look them up if I were you, I have since seen some amazingly clever things that they did to hide the fact that they had Jewish ritual objects. So there was this one, have you ever seen like one of these desks where you push a certain combination of pulleys and pushers and then it opens up and there's hidden things behind it or something, or a magic box where you slide, it looks like it's a solid box. You can't figure out there's something in there. And then you slide this here and then this here and this here, and there's a hidden opening in it. It was something like that. I'm going to try to find it again. I haven't been able to find it for many years, but it came across my internet at some point a long time ago, that it was like that it was this, it looked like just a regular box, or it looked like a regular desk. I've seen different ones. And yet in it was, when you open it up into its different parts, it had Shabbat candlesticks and a Kiddush cup and a Havdalah set and a Hanukkah menorah, and it had every kind of Jewish artifact that you needed for liturgical purposes, for having home rituals. But it didn't look like any of that when you looked at this box. And it served a few purposes other than the ones I just mentioned, that it could be hiding in plain sight, and yet you can use it when it came time to using it. But it also, if you had to leave in a hurry because you had been found out, you just take that box with you, and then you got to carry this family heirloom with you. So there are now many communities, even in America, that realize that they have had these strange things that they did, observances. Like, they don't know why, but every Friday night when it gets dark, they light a candle in a room that's in the interior of their house where no one else could see. And they didn't know, because the family that converted during the Spanish Inquisition could have put everybody else in the family at risk by even telling their kids that they were Jewish. And so often the second and third generation did not know that they were Jewish, but they had these things that they always did. I have encountered a few of these people here in Shreveport, and there's a question for me. Once they finally realize that they have these observances, and they realize that in their hearts they're Jewish and they've always thought of life in a Jewish way, there's a problem I have with deciding whether we need to do an official conversion for them, because it's something that they've always done. They've always kept these traditions. And if you convert them, it's as if they become less officially Jewish. So what conversion is a topic for another time and another place. But you will find these communities, and then because they would move as a community to someplace else, that they would all land in another place, they would still keep these traditions. And now it's generations later, it's a few hundred years later. And then they realize that they've all been keeping these Jewish traditions, and they all become officially Jewish as a community. You'll find many stories like that. This is about a language that people have used, and there's something awesome when, and we talked about this last week, there's something awesome when you realize that someone speaks some words that are familiar to you. And so it could be the way that they say muevo instead of nuevo, that all of a sudden you realize, hey, you hear this and you realize, that's weird. I don't know any country, any Spanish speaking country that says that. And the more you talk, the more you realize there are some of these things, some things sound just like Spanish, and then some things sound like not Spanish. And I know a number of people who have Sephardic background who have these words that they've grown up with for generations, and they keep them. So anyway, for whatever that's worth, I think that helps. But I really don't know what the N to M changes, and I'm embarrassed about that. I should have looked that up before I started sharing this list with you, but I'm going to share more of the list, because I think that you will learn something about, a little bit more about Ladino just by hearing the words. So we have La Casa Blanca, which you can imagine means a White House, because Blanco is white. Perro means dog, and it meant dog. El perro es preto. Preto is a strange thing. Preto means black. I have a guess that may be wrong about preto, but oh, that's good to know, Carol. I didn't know that. Carol apparently knows some Portuguese. I didn't know that. But preto sounds like priest in Italian. And the priests usually were all black. So I don't know if that's where this word came from. La casa no es blanca. The house is not white. El hombre es muy, and I love this word, Yakishikli, yakishikli, yakishikli. Anybody have a clue? I don't. Why yakishikli means beautiful? Does it sound like Greek? Anybody know Greek? Yakishikli, no. El perro blanco es hermoso. Hermoso, I know. Hermoso is almost like, looks like I've been losing my connection again. I've been on the phone with Comcast today too. Mujer is a woman. Una mujer rica is a rich woman. That's not surprising. Un camión viejo, and camión is a word in Italian and Spanish and the Romance languages for truck. Viejo is the same word now still in Spanish. Este is a lot like the Romance languages for this. Este camión colorado no es nuevo. Colorado means red. Why do you think Colorado means red?
Color is the word for heat.
Well, calor with a K, it could be. How about Mavi for blue? Flor doesn't surprise us as a flower. How about Araba as car? So the only thing I can imagine for Araba for car, and I'm making this up, I have no idea, but the word in Hebrew for four, the number four is arba, and it could be that it's a four-wheeled device. I mean, if you saw it coming through town, that might be what it strikes you, not literally, I hope. Estas arabas son caras. These cars are expensive. Aquel muchacho es prove. So aquel is that. Yeah, kiskiki sounds Russian, huh? It doesn't, so that doesn't make a lot of sense for a Russian to be an influence. It would be very cool if it did. I was talking to a student today about how much Russian influence there is in modern Hebrew that I wasn't aware of. I think I told you about the chupchik of a richrach. And the chupchik of a richrach is the little thing that you hold on to when you're pulling up your richrach, which is your zipper. And I was taught that the chupchik and the richrach were the official Hebrew words until I taught some kids some young adults who were from Russia. And they said, well, that's how you say it in Russian too. And it hit me that nope, that was probably the Russian words, and that there was a Russian immigration into Israel. And so there's words like chupchik and richrach and kibbutznik. The nick is a very Russian thing. Anyway, akel.
Nick, if you add nick to something, it's like makes it a diminutive.
Well, no, it means a person. Like a kibbutznik is someone who comes from like a kievnik will be someone who comes from Kiev. So prove is povere. In Italian, it's povero. Poveraccio is a poor guy. We've got muchacha and muchacho, akea and akeo. We had that akel was masculine and akea is feminine. This one surprised me. Akea bufanda no es barata. Now barata is cheap. It's also cheap in other Romance languages. Akea is like ella or which is she or it. But bufanda as a scarf, that surprised me, because in Italian bufanda would be something that's funny. That's the word that I thought of. Oh, maybe Amy's on it. Amy's on our Greek background here. I like this. Amy, how much Greek do you know? Are you on? That's okay. We're glad
I went to a Big Ten school.
I see. Well, so you've got some good Greek background, and you could tell. Anything else that feels like Greek? So some things that I know about Greek that are not the same as the Romance language things that I know that the Romance languages are gender based. So there's masculine and feminine, but the Greek also has a neutral. And I don't think the Ladino has a neutral, but I think that some of these forms are more similar to the Greek neutral than they are to what would be like the Spanish words. But why bufanda is a scarf? I don't know. So, aquellas son árboles altos, or árboles altos, I'm guessing. So in Spanish, it's with a B, árboles. We're back to some of the same kinds of words we have. I'm skipping through so we don't have to look at the same words we've already learned. Violeta is purple. That doesn't surprise us at all. Yo soy alto. So yo soy is it's similar to other Romance languages. Tu non sos fea. Very lovely. You, singular, tu, like Spanish too. No sos, you're not ugly. Fea, why do we have to learn words like ugly? That's never helpful. So we have fea and we have feo. Grande. Ella in Spanish is pronounced like this, but it's spelled with two L's. But it's ella spelled like, it's spelled E-L-L-A, but it's pronounced like ella. El no es is exactly what it would be in Spanish. Here we have nosotros hemos. So in Spanish, you hear me hesitating. I'm having a hard time looking at Ladino and trying to figure out if the words that I know are Spanish or Italian, because everything for me, all my Spanish turned into Italian when I had to speak Italian with the Italian family. And every time I try to speak Spanish, I have to remember, I have to think really, I have to close my eyes half the time to think really hard to figure out, am I thinking in Spanish or am I thinking Italian? And so the Vosotros form cracks me up. And sosh, I mean, that I don't know, but has anybody here who studied Spanish know anything about the Vosotros form? Because when I studied Spanish, my teachers, I had a Señora Rubinstein who was from Cuba, and she never taught me a Vosotros form at all. There are two ways of saying you, or y'all, as I like to say. One is the formal and one is the informal. The formal is ustedes, and the informal is vosotros. And they didn't use vosotros in Cuba, and they didn't use vosotros in any of the places where my teachers came from. Even so, I had a Señora Rubinstein and I had a Señor Fitzgerald. Those were my two primary Spanish teachers. Señor Fitzgerald never taught me the vosotros form, and Señora Rubinstein never taught me this vosotros form. But one time, and don't tell my mom, I'm glad she's not on here. One time in my life, I picked up hitchhikers. And it turned out to be, it was a couple. I was driving up the thruway from Rockland County back to Albany. And it turned out it was a couple who had landed that day from Spain. And I was, coincidentally, I was listening to, I had this, cassette player. It wasn't my car, it was somebody else's car. It was actually Billy Bronstein's car. And I had a cassette of Hebrew music, but it was Spanish music that had been translated into Hebrew. And it was great Spanish music. And they knew all of the songs, but they knew it in Spanish. They didn't know it in Hebrew. They didn't know Jews, but they knew all of these songs. And I was singing the Hebrew and they were singing the Spanish. And that's what got us through the whole trip. We got to know each other. We were friends. I tried to feed them a meal when we got to Albany. And I did not know how to say tofu in Spanish. And I could not figure out how to tell them that this was soy and this was a thing. And I had no idea. We didn't get very far, but they were very upset because by the end of this drive, by the end of the trip, we had become very friendly. And I could speak to them individually as tú instead of usted for the informal instead of the formal. But I had never in my whole life heard vosotros ever conjugated. I was pretty good with languages and I could have made it up and at least tap dance my way through some things, but I did not know at all how to conjugate vosotros. And the longer we knew each other and the better friends we had become, the more upset they were that I kept calling them ustedes. They also used so in Castellano Spanish there was they instead of a Z, which was like an S or a C sound for me, they would say conozco with a th. So they would say like conozco a él, I know him. And I thought it sounded like they were lisping the whole time, and I couldn't. There was no way I was going to get that. I was going to think in terms of, so this could have been like vosotros sos, but I didn't know how to do vosotros, and I certainly wouldn't have figured out a sos for them. Ellos son, nosotros, we, nosotros. So in Spanish, it would be nos, nosotros. Vosotros somos, we are friends. Amigo, amiga, we know those. In Italian, it would be amica, but that's not where we are here. El mi suéter, vedre, which we know is green, es nuevo. We could figure these out. And that was the cool thing. I think I told you the story. I think I told this group the story last week. The first time I ever heard a Ladino concert was very, very cool, because it was kind of like a Spanish concert with some Hebrew thrown in. And but they had words like, they said, well, so this was a love song. The guy was introducing it. This is a love song. And he was talking about how his luck was good and good luck. He wanted to say good luck to someone. He said, mazal bueno. So instead of saying mazal tov or mazel tov in Yiddish, he said mazal bueno. And I thought that was really cool, because you take mazal, which is luck or fortune, but bad luck, he said, by the way, is mazal perro, which is a dog's luck. I thought that was so cool. And I wish I could tell you what song that was, because I would have loved to have learned that song. I don't know what it was. So Amy, I'm not going to use you as my vosotros source, but so far I'm using you as my Greek source. And Spanish Jewish music may not be Ladino music. That's the cool thing. I mean, it's different. And it could be related or not. We know some Ladino songs. Hopefully I'll get to share at least one. La mi casa es chica, my house is small. Los mis hermanos son macebos. So my brothers are young. So, and I don't know if they're macebos or mancebo. Why is that a typo? I have no. Yep, ocho candelicas, I know. Hermana, we know. La tu madre is almost exactly like Spanish. El tu padre is your father. It's almost exactly like the Spanish. Los tus tíos y las mis tías. So Spanish, the spelling would be different. The Spanish tía and tío is with a T-I-O and T-I-A. And it doesn't surprise me that the spellings would have changed to reflect the sound, because if these words were Spanish words predominantly that were spelled in Hebrew, and you wanted to spell tío in Hebrew, you would have to have a yud in the middle of that to get tío. And so that when you then went from using Hebrew characters to using Latin characters, it does not surprise me that when you translated it back out to Latin characters, it pulled that Y, the yud, back out. Camiseta is almost like, in Italian, it's camicia, camicetta. Shoes. I would have guessed that this was shoes. Chapines, scarpones. La muestra parientes, that doesn't, parientes, it looks like it means parents, but it's how you say relatives in almost all of those other Latin languages. Son españoles, they're Spanish. And you can imagine Espanol is Spanish because that's what it still is. Nuestra lengua es hermosa, our language is beautiful. Gato is not surprising that that's a cat. Bicicleta doesn't surprise me that that's a bicycle. Tener still means to have in Spanish. Ser means to be. And if you took any of the Romance languages, you know that there's a difference between two kinds of being. And it was really confusing which was which. some have to do with this as permanent states and qualities. If I want to say, how are you? And it could be como estás? How are you? That's not a permanent state. If I asked you, how are you? And I used ser, it would be like, you'd give me descriptions about you. I'm tall, I'm, smart, I'm things like that, but you don't use, I don't see any tildes. I haven't seen any tildes in any of the writings. I'm not going to say that they don't use tildes. The question was, do they use tildes? But I haven't seen it. Tu tienes, and I haven't heard tildes pronounced. And I love this, the sh ending for vosotros. Vosotros tenéis, we saw the other one above with the sonosh. Amarilla is yellow in Spanish, but it's with 2 L's. All right, here's another one. Rida. Rida is a handkerchief. I have no idea why, because in Italian, rida sounds like to laugh, to smile. It's a happy word, just like the scarf was a word that sounded like you're making fun of something. And now we have a handkerchief, and it sounds like it would be in Italian making fun of something. So here we have bufanda. I mean, something that's buffo means funny. So I don't know if they're always making fun of what women wear. I have no idea. Lang, are you trying to talk to us? You're muted. I see your mouth moving.
Saying the words.
Oh, good. You're saying them out loud. Yeah, I'm guessing about these. How about dolls, kuklas? Does that sound like anything anybody's ever heard? Kukla? Elaine knows, right? Elaine, you've heard of it. Hold on, I'm unmuting you for a second. What do you think of when you think of kukla? And nothing? It didn't pop anything up? Come on.
The word is just funny to me.
It's a funny word. Oh, sorry. I was hoping.
Is it the puppets?
Yes, thank you. All right, good. Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, remember? I was thinking of that. And I was wondering, I'm presuming that may be where they got their names from, because they're dolls. Yay, Mike, thanks you, Kukla. How about this one? Lexi?
Can you give me a real quick refresher on where Kukla, Fran, and Ollie came from?
No, they were puppets that were a popular act in the, I don't know about before that, but certainly in the 50s and 60s. That's where I got introduced to them.
In America?
They're from the 40s.
Well, from the 40s? Yeah, go. So did they come someplace from before America? Were there shows that they were on?
No, they were in America.
I think Fran Allison invented it.
Okay. I see.
Burr Tillstrom was the creator. Fran was Fran Allison.
In The Sound of Music.
I don't remember that they were in that. I do remember that they were on shows that were the kind of like
Ed Sullivan.
like an Ed Sullivan kind of, those kind of variety shows. I seem to recall being on there too. And I think that they also were part of some kids show, right?
CBS Children's Film Festival.
Film festival? Yeah, but I was thinking something else, something like not Captain Kangaroo, but a different kind of a children only show kind of thing. We'll have to look into that some more. It's been a very long time. Isn't it nice that you could admit that you're old enough that that you may not remember all of the details? I remember, I'll look at everybody who remember Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. How about Topo Gigio? I mean, they would have been the same time. So that would have been a thing. You could, we went to Italy, we got to see Punch and Judy, Punchinello. We got to see things like that, but yeah, I don't think the Kukla, Fran, and Ollie were on Mr. Rogers, but yeah, Birthday Party House. Some of these things were regional, so I'm not sure if everybody knew all of them. But
In England, we had Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men.
oh, I have seen some of that. I have seen some of that. The Flower Pot Men. That's kind of a crazy. You wonder where some of these ideas came from. You could just use your imagination and guess, right? So in Italian, yeah, exactly. So we've got the transposition. Mamie's pointing out that the godro, for example, in Spanish is gordo. and in Italian too. I like this spelling here for giovane. In Italian, it's giovane with G-I-O, and now it's DJ, so that you're getting that J sound, giovane. It's interesting. Estar is still estar. Yo estoy en casa, I'm at home. Ande estás tú? Ande is donde in Spanish, dove in Italian. Él está en la Turquía. Turquía probably is in Turkey. Ella está cansada. So I think there's a cansada and a casada. Look, according to Kukla, that's good. Kukla TV Magic HTML. Kukla the puppet was named for the Russian word for doll. So wait a second, but maybe the Russian word for doll came from something else, like the Greek word for doll, and maybe that's where it came from. That's really funny. Maybe there was
it looks like kukla originates from Greek and Ottoman Turkish.
That's what I'm saying. I bet that it came from Greece first and shifted to the Russian name because of this migration. It may have even been a Ladino migration from Greece. I'm making up. I'm totally making this up. Stranger things have happened. I do know that after Shoah, that some of the kids who had escaped from the Shoah from the Eastern European countries, some of them wound up in Greece. And from Greece, they wound up in other places. Some people, I was talking to someone just this week where someone escaped from Europe, from Eastern Europe, and wound up in Egypt, which seems like not a safe place for Jewish people to be winding up. They certainly wound up having to leave there within the decade. I think it was the 1940s, 50s, I think is when they got out. Vosotros estamos en Yerushalayim. So Yerushalayim doesn't surprise us that we're using the Hebrew word for it, or Yisrael as the Hebrew word for it. How about instead of ciudad, Yerushalayim es la ciudad capitala de Israel. Ciudad instead of ciudad, or in Italian it's città. So ciudad is very close to the Spanish still. The thing that I don't know, and it's been too long since I've studied Spanish, is and the same kind of thing that we learned about last week in the Judaico-Romanesco is that some of these Ladino forms are old forms of Spanish, and we may be seeing examples of older Spanish forms instead of just borrow languages from other places. I is spelled Hay in modern Spanish. Hay dos libros sobre la mesa. So there are two books over on top of the table. And I do have, I mean, you don't have to just listen to my accent here. Because I have some, it was hard to hear, but I have some sites that I want to share with you of actual people speaking Ladino that know better than me. Cajón is a drawer. No hay una llave, which is a key in Spanish also with two L's, en el cajón. Hay un fotolio, which is why is that a white leather? Fotolio is a chair, an armchair, de cuero in Spanish. I think that there's a cuervo with a V, blanco en salón. Salón is the living room in every language. Dormitorio is the dorm, is the bedroom. Cerca, cerco is cercano, doesn't surprise me that that's near or close to, that's Romance languages. All right, so here's a great word, and I can guess more accurately where the back story is for this. Hay una keila cercano al mi burro. So keila, I can guess why it's a synagogue. Can anybody know what language keila would come from? Educated guess, keila. So the word in Hebrew for a community in Hebrew is kehilah, with an H in
Right.
the middle of it. The H would disappear in a Spanish language. Kehilah, notice that the accent is, there's an accent mark there for kehilah, which would be a community, a place for a community to gather. Burro sounds like donkey to me. I don't get it. I guess it's where you go to work. You feel like you're a donkey. I have making that up. Don't believe me. Don't believe me, burro. Hay muchas flores en la huerta. Now that doesn't surprise me, except it sounds more like war, guerra, but it's not. Jardino, Gardino. Mucho, that's a fun word to say. For much, mucho. Sia is also in Spanish is chair. And I'll tell you something else. I had this experience in Spanish, in Italian. My sister-in-law was 18 when we got married, and she was very homesick. She stayed for 6 months and she was very homesick. And so I took her to this coffee shop that was right outside of the campus area in Albany. I had never been there before. It had like Italian flags all flying from the front, and I had never been in there. And we went there thinking, well, they serve Italian coffee. I heard good thing. See, it's an office in French. Yay, Vicky. Bureau. That makes sense. It's the Bureau of, we know that even in English. But it still sounds like burro to me. It sounds like it's a donkey. But anyway, so we go to this coffee shop, and I thought she was going to instantly be transported to an Italian experience, but it wasn't. She didn't recognize any of the things that were going on. And she started doing these really weird things. So we ordered some espresso coffees, and she starts pouring for me. And I'm thinking, well, this is uncomfortable. And it was just weird the way we were interacting and what was going on. And I thought that she understood everything that was going on because the words all sounded like Italian to me. And she didn't understand any of it because it was Sicilian Italian and it sounded more like Spanish. She thought it was Spanish words. So anyway, so these are 6 tables on 6 chairs under the table, but I wanted to fast forward. You can see these words. All right, how do you pronounce tea? You think it's a cha? Chai tea? I'm guessing. It doesn't surprise me about some of these. Sumo is juice. I don't know. Cafe, griso, sol. A lot of these are similar. And then at the end, you get the, and you get cuchillo. It's almost the same in, piron is not like a fork in any of those languages. Escola is, mar is similar. Playa or in Spanish. Huevo, that sounds funny, but it's like huevo, but you're pronouncing an H instead. It looks like it says payas, but it's not payas, it's pais. Why shefteli for peach? I don't know. We know the church one, that wasn't surprising, although I would have expected maybe to see a word that was more hidden. A lot of these are similar, not umbrella. I didn't know that one. Tibio. Why tibio for warm? I have no idea. Helado is cold in those words. But then once we get to the bottom, come on. There's like a lot of words here. And I wanted to, sorry to go through so quickly. Portocal is orange. I don't. Oh, so here we get the counting. So this is from ocho candelicos. Uno candelica. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, and instead of 9, it's 9, and then 10. I love how it's spelled. These aren't surprising. 11 is similar. 12, 13, that's cool. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Porque, it looks like pork, but it's not. It's like porque in Spanish. Achacaste. Some of these definitely sound like they come from the Greek instead. But I wanted to share that. Now there was one other, this one, I think, which we don't get to have access to the whole lesson. I already showed you some of this. This is a class that you could take, but I think you have to pay for this class. So I'm sticking on here. but this lets you listen to, I would like a coffee, please, like quiero un café, por favor, but it sounds like, let me make sure that my volume is all the way up for you. Hold on. I hope you can hear this.
Quiero un café, por favor.
Did you hear it? You click on it again.
Quiero un café, por favor.
So you get the old lady sound and you get the young guy sound.
Quiero un café, por favor.
Quiero un café, por favor.
Okay. So this site lets other people
Buenos
say,
días.
he's saying it to her.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
I think that these, she sounds like she's
Sí.
American. Yeah, that looks like.
Sí.
Sí,
He sounds
Sí.
more emphatic.
sí, por favor.
Sí, por favor.
Sí, por favor.
Sí, por favor. No.
No.
I don't have to repeat that one. You got that one. All right. So then they'll let you pay for more if you want that. I'm going to stop the share for now. There's also, actually, there was one other thing I was going to share with you, but I thought it was going to be too hard to hear. I thought that one was not too hard to hear, but PJ Library, which is, PJ obviously stands for pajamas. If you know kids who are young, like mostly elementary and middle school kids, they will send free books to kids of that age, 3 free Jewish books. There's another Jewish book every month. And one of the books that they sent out in January of 2019 is a Ladino book. And this was cool, but it's this one's geared toward young families. And I'm going to share this screen. Hold on. So if you look at PJ Library, they talk about languages. So remember, this is for kids. Showing you a Spanish family. And words that they have and things that they're doing. So you've got music and other places to go to, but there's this cute video that they made of the book. That I and they don't have any subtitles. How could they expect us to learn it without the subtitles? That's not fair. The words are there. They're in the book. So that's why I didn't show that one to you. I think that we could have had subtitles on that. We would have learned something. But otherwise, it was hard for me to understand anything they said. It would have taken a lot of listening. And I think it may be worth the try to do all of that listening to try to learn some Ladino. Anyway, that's our Ladino lesson. If there's something special that you would like us to do, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it so boring and so ignorant. I like that we were 6 in Russian. Oh, Russian. Yeah, see, that's close. So these languages are all similar. And I love that. And we're going to keep going. We still have a few more weeks of languages, and obviously we have to do a bunch of Ladino. I mean, a bunch of Yiddish, and I may give you some more Ladino. I may give you some songs to learn. It's easier for some of these things if they're links to you instead of me trying to teach it at this point. All right, I am going to, with that,